Okay, let's get started. So welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. My name is Rafi Schulman and I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors. It's wonderful to have you here tonight. I'd like to take a moment and just share and just welcome the two moderators who are joining us tonight. Natan Nagar from Omega Mortgages and Rob
Thanks for having
Ernst.
me.
Sure, and Rob Ernst from Elite Israel Realty. Thanks guys, both of you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rafi.
My pleasure. We have over 100 people that have registered for tonight's webinar, and I'm always so impressed, excited to be able to share information, to be able to give you some guidance, to give you some practical tips, and really, help people through the stages, whether you're looking to make Aliyah, buy a home in Israel, invest in a home in Israel. It's really people from around the world that are coming together tonight, which is really amazing to us. I'd like to just go over a couple quick things quickly before we get into the webinar. So the first thing is we will be recording it. So if you've come late, or if you need to leave early, don't worry, we're not going to hold it against you. We're going to go ahead and send out an email within a day or two with a link to the recording so that you can watch it. And if you've missed part of it, you can watch it again. And also feel free to share it with other people. We really want to help as many people as possible. So when you get that email, if you have friends or family or contacts that you want to forward it to, by all means, please go ahead and do that. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to do a Q&A session at the end. So feel free as we go through the presentation to put your questions into the Q&A or chat boxes, and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can when we get to the Q&A session. And then last but not least, we will have our contact information at the end. And it's something that we really, the three of us, want to encourage you to reach out to us because we're not going to be able to cover everybody's questions, and we're not going to be able to get into everybody's personal situation in this webinar. And we realize that buying a home and making Aliyah are big topics and obviously very important decisions. And we want to be able to sit down with you, take the time and really understand your needs, your concerns, what your budget is, and try and help you find a suitable home. So by all means, reach out to us. We're going to try and reach out to you also within the next week or two. So if you see an email or a phone call from us, please just get back to us, and hopefully we can speak to all of you on a one-on-one basis and figure out how we can help you. Okay, so I'd like to just take a step back in time for a moment to 2016, which is when we started Olim Advisors. And we really started Olim Advisors with two goals in mind. The first goal was to help and encourage as many people as possible from around the world to make Aliyah. People that have been thinking about it and dreaming about it and not knowing what they should do. We want to come to them and say, yes, you can make Aliyah. It's going to require some planning, and it might not be that easy, but with the right planning and the right research, you can absolutely make Aliyah, and you can live a very happy and successful life in Israel. And that was really the second goal of Olim Advisors, was to go ahead and help people adjust to life in Israel, because it's a different culture, it's a different language. For those of you who are living here, you can appreciate it. If you've come to visit, then you know what I'm talking about. And we want to be here to really hold your hand and guide you through the process and really help you and your children and your parents, whoever else is here, to adjust to life in Israel and really enjoy the wonderful life that you can have here. As we continue to help people, we realize that having a home in Israel is such an essential part of this process, whether you're making Aliyah now, or maybe 5 years down the road, or maybe you don't want to make Aliyah at all. You just want to have a home in Israel for a place as a vacation or as an investment property. And we recognize that buying a home in Israel, the process is very different from the US, from the UK, from Australia, South Africa, or anywhere else that you're there. And so we set out to help people really in two ways. The first way was to introduce people to our network of professionals. These are individuals that we've carefully selected. These are people like Rob and Natan, who understand the mindset of an Ole, understand the mindset of somebody who wants to buy a home from abroad, who can really guide you and provide the level of service that you deserve and that you expect. So that's the one way that we're helping. The second way is actually where we are much more involved in the process with you from the early stages of doing the research into different communities and sourcing different properties and finding the right places that may be suitable for you, again, for making Aliyah or for investment, and then really guiding you through the entire process and remaining engaged from the early stages all the way to the end. And the reason why it's so challenging is because There's just so much demand for properties. I read recently in an article over the weekend that there's a shortage of 200,000 units across Israel. And so what's happening is that's leading to really limited supply. And so what's happening is people are looking to buy properties and they can't find properties within their budget. They can't find the right homes. And we felt that doing this webinar would be a great opportunity for Rob, first of all, to present properties specifically in Ramat Bet Shemesh, and for Natan to go over the mortgage process and actually identify a couple of mortgages that many buyers aren't aware of that can make houses that you might think are unaffordable actually affordable. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Natan, if you want to take a brief moment just introducing yourself, and then we'll go into the content.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rafi, and to Olim Advisors. I will briefly introduce myself. My name is Natan Nagar. I made Aliyah from Chicago just over 10 years ago this summer. And I do any and all Israeli mortgages. I work out of Omega Mortgages, myself and my two other partners. And together we have not just years and years of combined experience, but hands-on, we open up new mortgages to the tune of, tens of new mortgages a month, and well over 100 million shekels worth of mortgages on an annual basis. And the types of mortgages that we do, primarily our bread and butter, is mortgages for purchasing homes. Be that as it may, a ton of options have exploded onto the Israeli scene, and that's some of what I'm going to touch on. In the 10 minutes that I have, I think the best thing to do is just to dive right into it, hopefully answer some of the more basic questions. And if you have any questions afterwards, like Rafi said, you can either put it in the chat box, reach out, feel free. We really enjoy helping and being there and providing answers where answers can be provided. So I'm going to jump right into it. And I think the first thing that I'm going to say is that mortgages in Israel, like a mortgage is a mortgage. And at the same time, mortgages in Israel are very different from wherever your, local home country is, be it the US, be it South Africa, the UK. I don't want to forget countries, Australia, New Zealand. Mortgages here in Israel offer, more so than any other Western country, variety. And that variety allows you to specialize your mortgage so that it fits you even years later on down the road, right? So when you take on a mortgage today, it should work for you and live your life with you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And the reason for that ability to specialize and to tailor make your mortgage to fit your specific lifestyle and needs is because there are three main parts of a mortgage that you can choose, right? So let's start with the classic fixed rate, 30-year fixed rate, US mortgage. If you're in the UK, then it's fixed rate for a period of up to 5 years. Here in Israel, you can do a fixed rate. You can do a variable rate. Your variable rate can, vary on an annual basis, once every 2 years, 2.5 years, 5 years, 7 years, if you want to get really creative, 10 years, etc. And at the same time, you can both decide fixed rate and or variable rate within the same mortgage, meaning you can set up one subloan that's a fixed rate, another subloan that's a variable rate, a third subloan that's a variable rate with a different duration. One can be annual, one can be every 5 years. So that's when it comes to rates. You have the ability to choose according to your risk profile and your level of comfort, how it is that you want to set up your mortgage. The second dimension is you can index your mortgage. You can actually take the loan, the money that you're taking out in the mortgage, you can index it to Israeli CPI, right? You can index it to the US dollar. Let's say you're making income from the States and you kind of want to keep some of that volatility between, foreign exchange currencies. You want to keep that out of your own personal life as you move through life, and the mortgage moves through life with you. So you can actually decide to index that to the dollar, to the euro, or to the Israeli shekel. The third dimension is duration. You don't have to go for, again, we're going to go with the classic US-based 30-year fixed rate mortgage. You can choose anywhere from 0 to 40 years when you're choosing your mortgage here in Israel. And especially when we talk about some of the more specialized mortgages, a lot of people aren't aware that you're able to get a mortgage that lasts for longer than 30 years, up to 40 years with a non-banking lending institution. So if you put all of those things together, you really find that your options are close to unlimited You can choose a specific rate with a specific duration. You can index it or not index it, and you can choose that will be, for example, 500,000 out of the total 1.5 million that you take. So as we move on to the next slide, Rafi, I really want all of you guys attending here to think about what that affords you in terms of living your life with your mortgage. That really brings into my next point, which is it's really important to work with somebody who's familiar with the options. Now, the first reason, and it's probably the most obvious reason, is the famous or the infamous Israeli bureaucracy. Even Israelis have a hard time with the bureaucracy. That just gets confounded if Hebrew is not your first language and you have to go through the process in Hebrew. But even besides for the bureaucracy, touching back on the options that we just talked about in the previous slide, that's a lot of variety. How do you know what to pick, how to mill through all the different options that you have available to you so that your mortgage is working for you? And that's something that I want you to almost, take a mental snapshot, right? If it's not already something that's intuitive, that, when I'm dealing with something like a mortgage, of course, I'm going to go to a professional who's going to help me step by step through the process. If that's not something that's already intuitive for you, then I want you to take a mental snapshot of what you know about Israeli mortgages before this webinar. And I want you to take a mental snapshot when I'm done speaking and really think to yourself, okay, how much did I learn? And just how useful is information that I didn't even realize existed. Now that I realize that it's available, now that I realize that knowledge is there, oh my gosh, now I can think of how I'm going to apply this to my own mortgage. And I want you to take a mental snapshot of the before and the after as I'm going through the different slides here and really get a feel for what you're affording yourself when you have a professional help you through. The last thing that I want to touch on is the bankers. The bankers that I work with, it's a joy working with them. It's a joy sending in mortgages to them. They are some of the best people, both on a personal basis, but also on just a pure professional level. They know the ins and outs of their banks like nobody else. Sometimes they know better than their own branch managers. So these people know how to get not just the absolute best interest rates out of their bank, but they also know how to get certain things approved that normally when you go to your regular own bank teller, in whatever generic bank, those bankers may not have the same depth of knowledge of their own bank as the bankers that I work with. They are incredible. They are amazing people. And they are an absolute resource that helps me get the best for my clients.
And just to add to that, Natan, for a moment, when I got our mortgage a couple of years ago, we actually had 9 sub mortgages to Natan's point of all these variations, and the game that the bankers play, it's almost like you go into the shuk, into the market, where they'll say, this is the lowest rate I can give you, and it's like, fine, I'm going to take my business elsewhere, and then I'll call you back and say, wait, come back, I can give you a lower rate. And you play this game where you don't, it's not something that people are accustomed to when you're getting a mortgage elsewhere, and a lot of it comes down to the relationships that Natan was talking about. If he has strong relationships, or the relationships that he has with the bank, that gives him kind of a leg up when it comes to the negotiations. And so I found that as well, and that's really an important part of what Natan's saying, is it's not just all bankers aren't created equal, and that the relationships really will help you from a bureaucratic point of view of getting the loan approved, and then also when it comes to the lowest rates, it can make a difference of tens of thousands of shekel over the life of mortgage.
Right, that's absolutely true, and I want to even add on that really quickly. Sometimes bankers will say that that's the absolute cheapest rate that they can give. I know, because our company sits on data from hundreds of Israeli mortgage brokers throughout the country. We see what banks are giving clients, on a day-to-day, on a week-by-week, on a monthly basis. I know what the actual cheapest rate is, and I can say, hey, you gave, in a certain branch, in a certain city in Israel, you gave certain rates. And the bankers that I work with know that. They already know that it's, just not worth messing around, because I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to make sure that I negotiate for the absolute best rates possible. Yes, there is a lot to dive into there as well. But I'm going to try and move on to what I think are some of the more basic questions. In this slide and the next slide, which is the final slide, I kind of want to set up both the simplest questions about the most simple mortgages, and on the other hand, I want to talk about some of the more specialized solutions for more specialized case to kind of help you with that mental snapshot of, oh my gosh, there's so much more information here that I didn't think about. And just like you hadn't thought about all the information that you're currently getting, there's so much more out there to know and to help you with your mortgage. So here are some of the more traditional mortgage options, as well as the some of the more non-traditional ones. When it comes to LTV, which is how much the bank's willing to finance, if you're an Israeli resident, you can get up to 75% financing, which means that you need 25% down payment. If you're an Israeli expat, which means that you have Israeli citizenship, but you're living tax residency-wise outside of Israel, you can get up to 70%, which then means that you need to put down 30%. And if you're a foreigner, yes, even if you're not Israeli, you're able to get a mortgage here in Israel. It is more complicated to push through, but it absolutely is possible, despite what some people may say. And you need to put down 50% down payment. You can get up to 50% financing. Because here in Israel, we have healthy competition, and I say that semi-sarcastically. There are other companies that allow for up to 80 to 90% financing, which means, and this is what we mean when we're talking about the difference between being able to buy a home and not buy a home. Instead of getting to that 25% down payment, which doesn't even take into account, purchasing tax, you can get up to 80 to 90% financing, which means 10 to 20% down payment, and up to 40 years. There are now multiple companies who offer this. If you stay on top of the game the way that you're supposed to, you would know that. That's something that I and my partners are well aware of. We've already closed mortgages with these companies. We already know how to work with them, and we've already done it multiple times over and over. So those are some of the more basic options for the more basic questions. Now, in my final slide, I really want to get into two specialty cases that a lot of people didn't even think about. And yet those options do exist, right? So the first one is for older people who may be 70 years or older. Here in Israel, it's extremely hard to get life insurance, nigh on impossible to get life insurance if you're over 70 years old. And life insurance is one of those basic things that a bank is not willing to give you a mortgage without you providing life insurance to cover the mortgage. So what do we do with older people who may not have the same income to show because they're now retired, but on the other hand, have pretty good fixed income, such as pensions, etc., as well as other passive income that they've accrued over their life? We have something called reverse and or pensioners mortgages. Those options exist with lower levels of LTV, which means you have to put down higher down payments. And yet it's not that you would necessarily be left hanging without any financing options. The second option that I want to talk about is for business owners. A lot of times you'll think, hey, mortgages are for residential homes. What do businesses have to do with it, and how can that help me? Well, when a bank looks at a risk profile of a prospective client, they're going to look at what are the options for using some sort of a security, some sort of an asset that's going to back the mortgage, right? So normally with a residential home, you have just the home itself. Your home is the bank's guarantee that even if you don't pay the loan, chas v'shalom, the bank is going to be able to recoup its losses. However, what happens if you're a business owner and your business is successful and you can bring that to the table, lower your risk profile, and then introduce lower rates when you're taking out a mortgage? Those options do exist. And if you are aware of how to merge those together, it really is an incredible synergy that oftentimes business owners who need financing, because if you have a successful business plan, you need money in order to grow your business. A lot of times those same business owners will be looking all over for options and not realize that there is an option in their own backyard, pun intended. So I'm going to use that to wrap up really some of the just touching on points here and there when it comes to Israeli mortgages. I'm going to hand it off back to you, Rafi. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to all those attending, and moving on.
Stick around, Natan, because we'll get to questions. I see some questions are coming in, and I want to just keep the conversation on point. So we'll get to the questions at the end, and we'll try and answer as many of them. So with that, Rob, I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and your real estate agency, and then we can go through a number of the properties that you've identified.
Sure. Thanks for inviting us tonight, Rafi. My partner, Donnie's not here with us tonight. He's actually in Miami. Just a little bit of background. Donnie and I started our business a little over 2 years ago. And in just over 2 years, we've helped at least 250 different clients to either find rentals or homes to purchase here on the sales side, on the purchase side. And the purpose of tonight's webinar is to just expose you to some of the different properties that are currently on the market. Of course, I'll give the disclaimer that by the time we're finished with this webinar, they may not be available. Things move very quickly here. So these are things that, at least as of this morning, were still available. They may still be, and new things, as in every real estate market, obviously are always coming up. But we wanted to highlight a few of the properties. We'll spend a few minutes on each of them, highlighting some of the reasons to consider them. But of course, it's very important that after this, that we follow up. And if there's anything specific that you're looking for, to be able to understand really your needs, your budget, the size, the location, and then to be able to, have our laser focus on finding it for you. Either we'll go find it as a personal shopper, if it's something that you're actively ready to move on, or we'll just, have it in mind that if the right opportunity comes about, to present it to you.
So Rob, before you get started, I'm sorry, I just want to stress that point, which is such an important one, because that's one of the things that our clients, the people we're helping, are so surprised by how quickly properties move. And, people sometimes want to take the time, and you should take your time. I'm not saying rush into it. It's such a big decision, but just realize that if the property is priced right in a good location, it's going to move, and it's going to move quickly. And so it's just something that you need to manage your expectations and be ready to move forward. And having the ducks in order, having a pre-approval for mortgage, having funds in the Israel, or knowing how to transfer the funds, having a lawyer. These are some things that you can do ahead of time to really be prepared. So when you do come across something that you feel meets your needs, you can move forward quickly.
Certainly. And one additional point on that, Rafi, is there are agents who are more interested in selling you any property than the property that's right for you. And one of the things that Donnie and I pride ourselves on is we're much happier not making the sale and losing the deal than disappointing our clients. And part of our job is to do due diligence, to understand really the property, to know if there's something that maybe is not been advertised, and be able to present it to you before you spend time even considering it. So this property that the first slide that we're looking at right now is on Nahal Rafim, which is fairly centrally located. And as you can see, what it's looking at actually from this Mirpeset, to the right is a circle by Nahal Ayalon, and in the center of it, you see that that's a kollel, and to the left of it is actually a park. So here are some of the details, just to give you somewhat of an idea. So 3-bedroom apartments typically around here are anywhere between 90 and 105 meters on average. This one is approximately 95 meters. It's 3 bedrooms, has a sukkah balcony, has a Shabbos elevator in it, as you can see in some of the pictures. So they upgraded the kitchen and the bathroom. There is air conditioning. Again, the asking price on this is 2.5 million shekel, which is a little bit above the market rate. The market rate in terms of pricing, to give somewhat of an idea for a property in a good location that's been updated, is anywhere between 23 and 28,000 shekel per meter. So this is around 95. So again, this is a little bit more than 25,000 shekel per meter. And again, based on the location and the condition, it certainly is priced close to probably what it'll end up selling it for. It may be a little bit high, but again, most of the time, the sellers are getting what they ask for, or they're negotiating slightly below, but not really too many deals around here. And this is just a projection. There's something in Israel where you can apply through the area, an engineer comes and takes a survey of the building and asks for rights to be able to expand each of the apartments in the building. That was done here, and you can see in red, which is areas that they're looking to expand. And that's one of the things that this seller is trying to highlight when we're telling people. Now, again, if you were to go on your own, or you went with a certain agent, perhaps they would tell you, oh, look, you have an additional 40 meters here. Isn't this fantastic? You can build here, you can build there. What I did was I called the engineer who actually applied for the permit, and I said to him, what are the chances of somebody actually being able to do it? And he said, listen, the only way you can do it is if your neighbors above and below you all agree and do it at the same time as you. So I would take it with a grain of salt. It's unlikely to happen. If it happens, it's a bonus, but nobody should be buying it with it. So again, the information is very important. And if you're not getting correct information, unfortunately, it could lead to some consternation down the line. Okay, so this is a new area called Neve Shamir, also known as Ramat Beit Shemesh. And this is an apartment that actually has already been completed. Somebody's actually living there. Neve Shamir, just to give a brief overview, is going to be about 2,500 to 3,000 apartments. There are about 8 or 9 projects in all of Neve Shamir. 3 of them have already opened, and the others are slated to open. A number of them are slated to open over the next 12 to 24 months. And then there are a few that are going to be about 36 to 60 months, depending on when they actually start construction. So this is from a mirpeset. You can see there's a park in front, and you can see the beautiful hills behind. And this is a 4-bedroom. So it's in Israel. When they advertise, they'll say it's a 5-room, which means that there's 4 bedrooms plus the salon. And as you can see, in terms of the condition, it's brand new. It comes with a warranty from the developer. The asking price here, it's about 125 meters. They're asking about 3.1 million shekel. Usually what happens is if you buy on paper, which we'll get to in a few minutes, you're going to get a discount of about 10%. Here, you've already they built into the cost the fact they put in an air conditioning system, which doesn't come with a new apartment. There are 2 balconies or mirpesaot here. It's on the first floor. And as you can see, it's a beautiful apartment. It's currently available. And here's just a few additional pictures of one of the bedrooms and the kitchen. Something that should not be taken for granted are the upper cabinets. Sometimes when people buy something on paper, if they're getting it at a discounted rate or they're buying secondhand from somebody who got it at a discounted rate, they don't always include upper cabinets, which may seem a little strange to people in America, but it is the way that it is done here. So people should always be sure that before they buy anything, especially on paper, that they understand, and we'll get to this in a little bit, what exactly is coming with the apartment. This is another apartment. It's in a building, a project called Dona. Dona is the name of the builder. It's in an area called Mem Shalosh, which is also a newer area. It's where I live, actually. People started moving in around 5 or 6 years ago. This is a 1st floor apartment, approximately 125 meters. They are asking 3.5 million shekel, which is much higher on a per meter basis. But again, they also priced this a number of months ago when the market was a little bit more competitive, a little more hot. At this point, I think that they would come down on the asking price because with mortgage rates and inflation and everything, some people have instead of shot for the moon, they're coming down a little bit more realistic. But again, if somebody's looking to be in a fairly centrally located area, a new apartment, this is definitely an option for them. So this is an apartment in Rafi'im. Rafi'im, again, we saw earlier that there was an apartment in Rafi'im. This is another apartment in Rafi'im. This is more of a gut job, a project for somebody. If you want to change the slide, Rafi. So you'll see it's a bit dated. They haven't really put too much into it. It's a very good location, very bright. And again, the price is a little bit high based on the work that needs to be done because people are going to need to put in a good amount of work to open up the kitchen. The one downside that a number of people would see on this, especially for younger family, is that the mirpeset is off of one of the bedrooms. It's not off of the dining room, living room. So for a number of people, that would be a problem. But the truth is that based on the size, the location, and the potential, it is something that an investor could really sink his teeth into. Okay, so again, Neve Shamir penthouse. This is from a different project called Namdar, and you see that it's a beautiful view. It's quite spacious. It's about 130 meters, 140 meters. It says a 39 square meter apartment. I think that should be 139. So it's 4 bedrooms, 30 square meter mirpeset, outdoor space, storage room. And again, in terms of the kitchen, so if you can see in that small photo on the bottom left, you'll see that the kitchen leaves a little bit to be desired. You know, the people who bought this, they upgraded, but for an American style kitchen, it certainly would be lacking, and people would want to upgrade on that. But one of the good things is if you get something new like this, shortly after it's done. So you would have a warranty from the kitchen company on the material, and you would be able to go back to the kitchen company and be able to add on additional cabinets or anything else that you wanted. Okay, so here, this is on paper, as we like to say. Some people also call it off paper. I'm not sure, on paper, off paper. But this is a typical 3-bedroom apartment in a new project, occupancy within 24 months, more likely probably 18 to 20 months. And again, it's 95 square meters, a 27-meter mirror-pesset. And if you look at the mirror-pesset, which is in the upper left corner of the picture, the top part, the white part, is the only part that's not covered. So meaning for a sukkah, you would have a very long, thin line, but it wouldn't be very wide. So that's something that people obviously, they find it great importance that they have a sukkah mirpesset. There is one, but in terms of the size, in a lot of the new construction, unless you're either on in the penthouse, the garden, or one under the penthouse, generally speaking, there's not a lot of space that's allocated for a sukkah. But again, if somebody wants to buy something on paper, and you can see the price is 2.37 for 95 square meters. We're going to see in the next slide something that's slightly larger. It's a 4-bedroom, and you can see the price jumps about 300,000 shekel to go from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom. It's the exact same apartment, except you have an extra bedroom. It ends up being 18 meters larger. You can see the mirpesset, and again, these are both on the same floor, one next to the other. One of our clients did was actually bought both of them when the prices were significantly less expensive about a year ago, and they actually are going to have one very nice size apartment over 200 meters on one floor, and that way it'll have the feeling of almost a house because of the size of it and the layout of it. And this is just a picture of the buildings that from the 2 slides that I just shared with you on the floor plan. These are the buildings. This is where they would be. And to the left is going to be an extension of Park Yarmut. Park Yarmut runs through Mem Shalosh right now. It's going to run all the way through Neve Shamir and eventually run through Ramat Shiloh. It is scheduled to be the largest park in all of Israel. Okay, so we went through some apartments. Now we're going to turn to some houses. So this is a house. It's about 260 meters. The easiest way to try to figure out, okay, well, how many square feet is that? So you could add a 0 to it and bump it up a little bit. So let's say it's about 2,700 square feet. It's 8 bedrooms, 5 full bathrooms. You have a front garden, a back garden, separate entrance to the basement, which right now is being used as a rental unit. It's got a spacious kitchen, and it's in a very good location, centrally located. And as you can see, if you go up to the mirpesset, you have a beautiful open view. And here's just a picture of that kitchen from the same house. And that view, get it a little clearer. You can see as far as the eye can take you on a sunny day. Okay, so Mem Shalosh, we talked about Mem Shalosh a little bit earlier. Here's a cottage that's on the market. This is in a project called Gana Ha'ala, which opened up about 2018. There's around 60 homes there, and this is one of them. It's 4 stories. Many of the cottages, by the way, are 4 stories. So you have a main entrance, you have a second floor, which is usually the sleeping floor, and then you have an attic and a basement. So this is 7 rooms or 6 bedrooms. You see it's 266 meters, so about 2,700 to 2,800 square feet. Again, you could close in that at least part of the garage in order to make it into a rental unit if you wanted to. It's in move-in condition, private entrance, close to shuls, schools, shopping. And as you can see, the prices have gone up significantly from a apartment to a home, a cottage. So what is a cottage? So cottage means that there's one wall that's shared between you and your neighbor. And what is the reason, besides for the fact that there's a difference in the size, that cottages have become so expensive compared to apartments, is that in Ramat Beit Shemesh, they're not building additional cottages. The only cottages that are currently under construction right now are ones that were grandfathered in from many years ago, but they're not building any new ones. And those have already been sold. So it's really only apartments coming in Neve Shamir or Hay, as we said, there'll be 2,500 to 3,000 apartments. In Dalit, which is an area that not so many Americans are going to, there is a small group of Americans who are going there, but it's not necessarily a popular destination. There's going to be about 10,000 apartments. So while there are a lot of apartments for a lot of Anglos who are coming maybe with small children or somebody who's just used to a larger home, the prices have gone up because in order to be able to get one of those, you can't just go to the open market and buy it on paper the way that people were able to for the past few decades. Now you have to have somebody who's willing to move. Either they're willing to move to a smaller home, to an apartment, or they're willing to leave Ramat Beit Shemesh. So the prices have necessarily gone up significantly on cottages. And here's just some pictures. You see the kitchen to the left, and the dining room, which leads out to one of their mirpasaot on the right.
And also to mention, when you buy a home, whether it's, well, definitely if it's new, but even if it's secondhand, you typically don't get any appliances. You don't get light bulbs, you don't get lighting. It's typically the shell of the apartment. And a lot of people are shocked by that. They walk in and there's not even light bulbs. And that's just the Israeli way of doing things. So I know in the States, for example, very often appliances come along with the house. In Israel, they typically do not.
Yeah. And the same thing on a rental. I remember the first time we moved into a rental, and my wife looked at me and she said, there's not even a toilet paper roll holder. Like there was nothing. So you have to be prepared for that. But again, if you're working with people who you trust and who are keeping you updated on all the information, so they're going to help you. And one of the things that we actually encourage people who are going to be renting is to take it a little bit early. And if they have family or friends, to accept the appliances for them, to have things delivered in advance, beds in advance. So when they come on that Aliyah flight, they actually have everything set up already. It just makes their lives so much easier, because it's hard enough when you come here, you're exhausted, and there's so many other things that need to be done. If you can check off a few things in advance, it really makes a world of difference.
Great.
Okay, so this is one of those grandfathered in cottages. It's being built actually right now. The construction is actually moving very, very quickly. And as you can see, it's scheduled to be ready in just, that should be December 2024, not 2023. It's scheduled to be ready within the year. They're asking, as you can see, 4.85 million shekel for this.
Rob, I'm sorry, December 2024, because that's 2 years.
Oh, December 2023. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yes, I got confused with the date change. That is correct. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
So you see the down payment of 3.2 million shekel. So a lot of people, wince at that. They say, why am I paying 3.2 million shekel? It's not completed yet. So when a group is formed as a purchase group, they need to put down a certain amount of money so that nobody can hold up the project. And so what happened here was a certain amount of money was pledged. They didn't get mortgages traditionally from a bank. What they did was they went to a third-party lender, and the third-party lender has a lien on the entire property. So in order to remove this portion of the lien, the entire amount needs to be paid off. So in order to do that, the owner has asked for 3.2 million shekel to be able to remove the lien that's currently on him, on his piece of the entire project. And once he does that, then what he would do is he would transfer his rights over to the buyer.
And at that point, the buyer can take a mortgage out, right? Once I put that money down?
Not until the project is completed.
Okay.
Once the project is completed, then they can.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and here's just another rendering of what it's going to look like. And again, this is right on the park, on Park Yarmut in Mem Shalosh. Ramat Shiloh. So Ramat Shiloh is a different area of Ramat Beit Shemesh. You can see in the background, by the way, if you see all the way in the hills, that's Ramat Beit Shemesh Gimel, which we're not going to talk about today, but that's another area that has developed over the past 10 years. So Ramat Shiloh, which is home to Yeshivat Lev HaTorah, so that's also a very, very popular area. It opened up around 2005, 2006. So it's been about 17, 18 years now. And this is a duplex penthouse. So you're in a building, you're on the third floor, but you have 2 levels. which for some people is much better than having a 4-level home. You're in a building, which again, some people may like, some people may not like. You have 4 bedrooms, including a master with an ensuite, 2 bathrooms, 2 covered parking spots. And again, the asking price is based on what they believe that the market will bear. I believe it's a little bit too high. I think that it'll probably end up selling for in the mid to high 3s. I think that, again, this is a leftover from 6 to 8 months ago when prices were a little bit higher on some of these. And I think that a number of the sellers are starting to realize that while they can still make a lot of money off of the sale, when they price these, they didn't really price them according to the direction the market was heading. They were looking backwards instead of forwards. And here's just a few more pictures of the duplex penthouse. You can see it's fairly spacious. Okay, so this home is on a street called Rephaim, again, but it's a different part of Rephaim than we saw earlier. It's more of a dead-end area. It's on Rephaim and Raziel, if anybody knows that area. So this home is extremely unique. It's the kind of place that either people will absolutely love or they just won't understand. Why? Because when you walk in the house, so you have a kitchen to the right, but then you have to go downstairs really for your dining and for your living space. But what's unbelievable is how much outdoor space there is. So somebody who wants outdoor space, who wants a very unique home, it's almost like a 4 split level home. So normally in America, you have a split level, it's 2 levels. Here it's 4 levels. So it's a split down, a split up, another split, another split. It's very, very interesting. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. And the outdoor space is something that you can find almost nowhere else in Ramat Beit Shemesh. And here you can see to the left, the outdoor space. To the right, what actually they did was, if you see the picture on the left and then the picture on the right, so the garden actually goes all the way around. So if you're looking at the left, you'll see there's a center area that you would go through. That's the picture on the right. And then on the other side, there's another garden that's also very large. So what they did was they enclosed this area in the center to have it as a living space. So you can see you have the stone, you have the wood on top. It has like a lodge type of a feel. Really beautiful, really interesting. Okay, and this home is on Nachal Ayalon, and it's really a jewel of a home. It's a home that is about 270 meters. So you're talking about 2,800 square feet. It's on 3 floors instead of 4. It's much more functional than a lot of the 4-story cottages because of the fact that it's only on 3 floors. You walk in, you have a very large open dining living space, as you can see in this picture here, a beautiful kitchen as we saw in the picture before. You're centrally located. You're right across the street from the park, but you're off of the main road about 15, 20 feet. So you don't hear the noise. You're not affected by the traffic because you're removed. And then you have upstairs, you have a large master suite with a jacuzzi and a shower. It's really like one of the few homes that you'll feel like it is an American home. And why do I say that? Because you go up the stairs and you have on the left side, you have the master suite, which is quite large, especially for Israeli standards. Then you have a long hallway. And then on the other end, in between, you have a kid's bathroom and you have a laundry room, and on the end you have 3 bedrooms. So it has that colonial type of a feel in America, meaning that not everybody's on top of each other. Most of the apartments in Israel and the homes in Israel, the parents' room and the kids' rooms are all on top of each other. There's no space at all, no privacy. Here, not only do you have that, but in the basement, so it's ground level entrance, you have another 3 bedrooms, plus you have a full kitchen and a living dining area. So the people who are living there right now are using that actually as an Airbnb. So we use it as an Airbnb. It could be used as a full rental for the whole year. It could be used as an office, or it could be incorporated into the house. And then you have an 8-bedroom house with 3.5 full baths. And here's just a few more pictures. So the left is Park Ayalon. Park Ayalon is very centrally located in Ramat Beit Shemesh. You could see the living room, the dining room space, and it's just a beautiful home. Somebody who's really looking for an American type of a home and has the budget for it, this is the type of opportunity that doesn't hit the market very often.
Great. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate the information. I'm sure everyone does. And, I just want to mention again that this is just a sample of the properties that you're aware of, that you're, showing people. So, of course, if the properties here that you're interested in, by all means, let Rob know. But if you're looking for something else, whether it's for budget reasons or other reasons, this is why we work so closely with Rob and with his partner, Donnie, because they will go out and find something that meets your needs. And so thanks for that information. And I want to just take a moment here, put up our contact information. Again, we'll send out a recording so that you'll have this information and you can definitely reach out to us. And I just wanted to mention here, this utilities offer, and one of the frustrating things, and Natan mentioned bureaucracy briefly, is that when you buy your house, it's a big decision, a big process. And then you come in, and then you have to deal with all the different utility companies. And in many cases, it's a hassle. It's dealing with the water company, the electric company, the gas company, the telecom. And what we wanted to just offer to make that transition a little easier is that if you do end up buying, property as a result of this webinar or through the introduction to Natan or to Rob, let us know. And we have a staff of people that can help you with this and take care of this. And there's some specific things that you need to do so that you don't end up having to pay somebody else's water bill for the past 6 months or electric bills for the past 6 months. And so just as a little thank you for joining us tonight, and just letting you know that we're here to help you in any way that we can, just keep this in mind. And if you do end up buying something, just let Rob or Natan know or myself know, and we can step in and help you with that. Okay, so let me just pull up the questions here. I'm just going to stop the sharing here for a moment, and we'll just go to some of the questions here that so there's a question here. If you put down 20% on paper, when is the 80% due? So if you're buying something on paper and you're putting down 20%, can you talk a little bit about the payment plans? And if this person is in their 60s, is that something that is going to be a challenge? I know, of course, it all depends on the figures we're talking about, but maybe Natan, if you can talk about, or Rob, if you can talk about the typical payment options that people have when they're buying something on paper.
Sure. Natan, I'll just speak a little bit about the payment plan options usually, and then if you can please describe the process that when you would step in basically to help them. So usually it's something that's negotiated with the developer. It's not, there's no blanket rule, but on a 20/80, which is what you're describing here, meaning you put 20% down upon signing, the 80% is usually due. It's typically 3 months prior to getting the key, meaning the developer will call you and say, hey, the apartment's going to be ready in 3 months. You need to make the final payment by X date in order not to have any sort of penalty or additional charges.
Right. So yeah, I would add on to what Rob mentioned. It really is negotiable, and it really depends. This is something that I work closely with the realtor and with the lawyer to figure out what the right timetable is, because you don't want to be sticking yourself into a corner and obligating yourself to a certain timetable when money may be flowing in at different times, or your ability to pull out the financing may take longer. So a lot of this is actually open to negotiation. It really depends on the contractor and on the specific project, and sometimes on the bank that is backing them. To answer the second half of the question about what do you do when you're 60 years or older, that really depends. Just a week or two ago, a really lovely couple who actually reached out to me through Rafi and Olim Advisors. One was 68 years old, the other one was 71 years old, and we managed to get a mortgage approval through a regular mortgage, but it did incur higher monthly payments because they had less time to pay down the mortgage. Sometimes a better option is actually just to go with the pensioner's mortgage. Sometimes a better option is to go with the regular mortgage, and that's something that really changes on a case by case basis. If HO wants to reach out to me, Rafi put up all of our contact information, and maybe I can field that question more specifically as it pertains to your case.
Great, thank you. There's a question here about penalties to prepaying the mortgage. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so prepayment penalties are for fixing, I'm going to combine that with a different question that I saw, which is, do you get lower interest rates if you have a fixed rate? So I'm going to try and explain this, just, like within 30 seconds, kind of like an elevator pitch for banks, risk management, etc. When a bank prices the correct interest rate in the bank's eyes, one of the factors that the bank's looking at is how long is the loan duration going to be, right? Is it pricing something, markets can change next month and in a year from now, in 5.5 years from now. Am I pricing the right price for a loan that lasts a certain amount of time? So when you have a variable rate loan and that loan changes, let's say on a monthly basis, varies on a monthly basis, then the bank doesn't have to worry at all whatsoever about the wrong price because it's constantly being marked to market. But if that fixed rate, for example, has a 30-year duration, then it's going to actually raise the price of the interest rate to account for that added risk of possibly not pricing in the right amount. Now, if we combine that with the prepayment plan, if you have a subloan with a fixed rate mortgage, what you're basically doing is you're signing with the bank on a business agreement saying, hey, I'm going to pay you out, X interest over Y amount of time. And then you want to, pay that down earlier. And listen, I'm all for, quote unquote, robbing the bank, but so to speak, you're robbing the bank of what you had already agreed to. So the longer the duration and the larger the loan on a fixed rate, that's going to decide the size of the penalty. So if you have something that's kind of mid-sized where a variable rate lasts, for example, for 5 years, and you're already a year into it, you're going to actually multiply it out by the remaining 4 years to come up with your prepayment penalty.
Okay. Then there's a question about can you qualify mortgage if your income is in the U.S.? And so I know I was in that situation and I was able to. And it's just a few more hoops that you need to jump through. And I know Natan and Rob, both of you work with a lot of foreigners who are buying in Israel, and so I know that's something that's commonly done.
Yeah.
Okay. Natan, can you go over just the rule of thumb when it comes to calculating? I think he told me for every 100,000 shekel mortgage, it's X amount. I think it was 600. Can you just go over that very kind of rule of thumb calculation, just so people can get a sense a little bit about what the monthly payments would be?
For sure. So first of all, disclaimer: it really is a rule of thumb. It really, truly is a rule of thumb. However, just to wet our feet, for every, like Rafi said, around 100,000 shekels, you're going to be paying around 650 shekels. It depends on how aggressively you want to pay down the mortgage and how efficiently you want to pay down the mortgage. But that is the general rule of thumb, such that if you're taking out a 1 million shekel mortgage, you're going to be paying around 6,000, maybe 6,500, depending on your efficiency.
Okay. Then there's a question here about life insurance. If a person already has life insurance in the U.S., does that cover the requirement here in Israel that the banks have?
So that's a very interesting cross-border legal question. What you're going to have to end up doing, and this is something that does get approved pretty rarely, but it does occasionally happen, and it depends as much on the insurance, on the insurer, as it does on the Israeli bank or the Israeli lender. Basically, you have to be able to use your insurance as your backup for your mortgage. If legally the insurance company is okay with that cross-border transaction, then I can approach the Israeli bank's legal team and say, hey, how can we work this out so that this foreign life insurance, which is, they are good for the money, how can we work it out so that this actually does cover the mortgage?
Okay. Rob, can you give just a sense of whether or not there are furnished apartments or houses for rent in Ramat Bet Shemesh Aleph?
Yes, there are. Few and far between, that's for sure. But there are some. That's the kind of thing, if it's important to somebody, they have to really kind of put it on our radar very, very early. And then they have to be ready to consider taking possession long before they may need it. Because I would say, you can count on two hands the number of apartments that come furnished that that would really be of interest to somebody. And same thing with cottages. There was a place, for example, that there was a cottage this past summer that was furnished, and I know of 4 people who were all vying for it because that was the only cottage that actually came furnished. It's fairly atypical to see it.
Okay. What about buying or paying in full without a mortgage? Is that something that is acceptable here in Israel?
Sure.
You mean like 100% financing?
No, it's the opposite. I think somebody's asking here if they want to just buy it in cash.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I think I know in the States, and I believe here too, if you come with that offer and there's a few other people that are lined up, the seller will factor that into who they want to choose, right? Because not everyone's guaranteed to get a mortgage. Sometimes a mortgage takes longer. And if you can, in essence, pay in full and then wire the money, that works in your favor.
Right. I will say that with private sellers, it does work. With developers, they don't care. Developers they're not going to give you a discount because of it. They'll just say, somebody else will buy it. I don't really care. With private sellers, they will.
So it's interesting with developers, actually, many times on paper, you're not able to pay the entire thing up front because of the Madad, because of the building index. You have to stick to that payment plan.
Correct. There are times where you can, again, just like Natan said earlier, you can negotiate that.
Right.
And you can discuss it. One other question, Rafi, that I see here about rental prices on houses or cottages, and is there anything available? So there is. What I'll tell you is, not this past summer, 2 summers ago, the rental prices on houses or cottages went up significantly. By significantly, I mean they went up anywhere from 60 to 100%. It was crazy. This past summer, it kind of evened out a little bit more. Right now, if you were to, it depends when you also take possession. If you take possession in the off season, in the winter, it's going to be significantly cheaper. So right now you can get something for around 10 or 11,000 shekel. Most of the cottages that will go over the summer are going to go for between 12 and 14,000 shekel.
Okay. And can you talk about the last house that we showed? How much that the bottom unit could rent for? Do you remember?
So it depends what it's being rented for. If you're doing an Airbnb, so you can make significantly more money than if you're renting it out, full term. And if you're renting it to an office versus a family, you could also make more money. So it really depends. I'd be happy to speak with whoever is interested, offline about it.
Okay. There's a question here about getting an Israeli bank account. If you're buying a house for investment purposes from the U.S., can you get an Israeli account? And so we've had a number of clients that have done that. You have to work with a lawyer to, in essence, do a limited power of attorney. And the time you can maybe talk about that just in a little bit more detail. But the answer is you can absolutely do it. And we have contacts in banks that can help you set it up. And it is something that is done every single day.
Yeah, so I just to add onto it, Rafi, you really gave more or less the full answer. As I mean, this without sounding too cynical, if you have a good enough reason and if you come with enough money, then the answer is absolutely yes. Even if you don't come with enough money, again, as Rafi mentioned, if you have the right contacts, and especially if your reason is you'd like to take out a mortgage, then it is very, very possible. You can, reach out to your lawyer. It's something that I do with my clients if the specific lawyer in the specific case isn't as well versed, but it is absolutely possible. Yeah.
Okay. And Rob, there's a question here about somebody who wants to buy an apartment in Ramat Bet Shemesh, and then would like to have a company manage it. So could you put them in touch with people, or is this something that you could help them? And what is the what's the typical management fee?
So it depends really on what is involved. One of the things I'll say is if you're buying something on paper, meaning it's new and it's pretty much under warranty from the developer, and if you put in air conditioning, that's under warranty from the air conditioning company. There's very, very little in terms of management. Now, management may just be, look, I never want to get anybody to call me. I don't want to ever have to deal with anything. So something like that, it could be, a few hundred shekel a month. It could be like maybe 500 shekel a month, because there's really not much work to do. It's more of, I'm willing to pay 500 shekel a month, $150, whatever it is, just so that nobody ever bothers me. If there's a problem, you deal with it. If it's a larger home, if it's something that's older, maybe that needs more care, needs more attention, is not under warranty. So potentially it could be a bit more. There are some people who will charge, 1 month's rent, whatever that is, for the whole year. Other people will charge monthly. But again, we'd be happy to put you in touch with a variety of people to consider. And we never have a horse in the race, meaning we always, just like Rafi said, in terms of our relationship, we work with people that we trust and we know will serve the clients the best. And then we give them the option to find who they prefer to work with. And we're very happy to make that arrangement.
Great. There's a question here about, are we familiar with other areas of the country, such as Afula? And that's really the essence of Olim Advisors and how we help people when it comes to real estate. We have relationships with realtors throughout the country. So Rob and Donnie here in Ramat Bet Shemesh, and then throughout the country, in Anglo hubs, as well as areas that aren't as don't have large of an Anglo community. And so if you're looking to make aliyah to an area, if you're looking to buy a property in Israel, come to us. And if you have a specific area in mind, we can help you with that. Or if you just want to, look for an investment property based on certain parameters, then we can also do the research for you and make recommendations. And so this webinar happens to focus on Ramat Bet Shemesh, but yeah, absolutely, we can help you with other areas as well. I think there's just a couple more questions, and then the time is getting late, so we'll call it a day. But somebody asked a question here about illegal additions, right? That's something that pretty much anywhere you go into Israel, people have added many times without the proper permits. How does that affect does it have any impact on the mortgage process? Does it have an impact on the legal process? How does that come into play?
So I'm gonna try to the best of my ability to answer both questions. The mortgage process, when the appraiser comes to do the appraisal, he matches up the existing home that he sees with the legal documents that back the home, right? And so if he sees any sort of illegal construction, what he'll do is he'll take a really cut and dry approach, and he'll ask, okay, how much money will it take to return what is now an illegal construction to its proper legal state, right? So just throwing out random numbers here, if you have a 3 million shekel property with an addition, that takes 100,000 shekels to get rid of whatever it was, then the appraisal is going to come out to 2.9 million shekels, and that's what you can use when calculating your mortgage. Whether or not that illegal construction is longstanding, it really depends on where in the country. For example, you have a lot of stuff, deep in Tel Aviv, where the illegal construction's been around for 50 years and nobody's getting kicked out of their own homes. And you have places where people, without any fear of the law, decided to build whatever it was that they wanted, and those can indeed be taken down.
Yeah, what I would say, Rafi, what I would say is, I don't like to use the words illegal. I say that they didn't get a permit for it, because it's an interesting phenomena that basically you can build a home and they give you this space that's empty, and everybody nods and winks at each other. No, you can't do anything with this, right? But then when the city comes in and sees that you did it, they charge you taxes for it. But then the mortgage company comes in and says, "Oh, you did something that you weren't supposed to do. We're not going to give you credit. Actually, we're going to deduct it." So the whole thing is a little silly. I'd say that probably in Ramat Beit Shemesh, as Natan just said, it's been going on for as long as Ramat Beit Shemesh has been around. It would be shocking to me if more than 5% didn't have something done to their home that wasn't permitted. And it is an issue because people want that extra space. They need that extra space. They have large families and they want to use it. At the same point in time, very often what happens is that the appraisal comes in below the asking price, and that means that somebody needs to come up with additional cash. So that's where it becomes a problem in terms of penalties or anything else from a legal perspective. So certainly everybody will give the company line, it could happen, but it really is something that is so routine here that unless somebody really upsets their neighbor and their neighbor, keeps calling the area to do something about it, generally speaking, people just go on their merry way.
Yeah, and even more than that, sometimes, right, and Rob mentioned this, good planning goes a long way. Sometimes if you know that there's some sort of an illegal construction, you can let your realtor know, you can let me know, you can let your lawyer know. And I will definitely make sure that when it comes time for the appraisal, the bank gives you a list of appraisers who you can use. It's not such a hard deal to reach out to my contacts and find out who's a little bit more stringent, who's a little bit more lenient, who's a little bit more able to, meet us halfway and give us a higher price so that we're not actually affecting the bottom line.
That's a very important point, Natan, and it's crucial, because if you have somebody who's not familiar with Ramat Beit Shemesh, for example, and they come here once, every 6 months, as opposed to somebody who's coming here every single week, it's a totally different discussion, and you can't have that conversation with them because they say no, but this is not right. So I agree with you completely. It's very important when you're working with your mortgage broker to make sure that they know really who should I be sending into that house to do the appraisal.
Okay. And then the last question here, Natan, somebody asked about a little bit more detail about the 80 to 90 LTV, 80 to 90% LTV. I don't know if this is something that you can just go into a little bit of detail in a couple of minutes without, kind of getting into the weeds, but if it's possible, maybe just to, clarify a little bit, and then of course people can have more in-depth discussions with you on a one-on-one basis.
Right. So I'm going to try and give it my best shot. While I'm speaking, if whoever typing the question could maybe specify their question a little bit more, what it is about that higher LTV that they want to know. But just really quickly, banks, and especially, post 2008, banks here in Israel as well are under pretty tight banking regulation. A lot of the regulation actually passed in 2011, even though Israel was relatively unaffected. And so you have fairly stringent, fairly unbending regulations that a lot of the non-banking actors, non-banking lenders have actually come in and said, you know what, let's provide liquidity to the market for this specific niche. So yes, there are quite a few companies who give 80%. There are companies there's one company who gives the maximum, which is 90%. Those are generally more variable rate loans, and so that obviously needs to be taken with the appropriate risk assessment. And if whoever asked the question gave a more specific question to work with, then I can go into that further. If not, then our contact information's out here and recorded. Feel free to reach out offline and ask.
Great, thank you. So I think that comes to the end of it. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us tonight. Of course, to Rob and to Natan for your time and for the really helpful information. This is something that we want to really be partners of this process. As you can see, there are a lot of things to consider, and we're not just looking for the next client. We want to make sure that we can help everybody find a home in Israel, whether you're making Aliyah, you're buying for investment, for other purposes. We're here to help you, and really don't hesitate. We encourage you to just reach out to us, just ask questions. We're happy to talk to you, and if you want to move forward and work with us, we would be more than happy to do so. But if you just want to have some clarity and some information, reach out to us. So thanks everyone again. Have a wonderful week. Be healthy and stay safe, and we'll be in touch with you soon. Take care.
Rafi.
Take care.
Bye-bye.